Our LSU has come to the voice of college football. We got Carter here breaking down the Bayou Bengals coming off a pretty decent win. I guess, they got by.
Huh? Huh? Huh?
That
Huh?
was crazy. So you were there. Tell us about the scene. Tell us about the vibe.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like people that go to every single game, and I've been to a lot. They say that that's top 5 game, and that's truly crazy because when it comes to home games, there's not many teams in college football that has the schedule that LSU has and has all these big time SEC opponents that come to Tiger Stadium, right? And it truly was a transcendent out of body experience. With the fans rushing the field, and right after the game ended, Mark, a big fog hit Tiger Stadium. All of it was just truly insane, and you give Brian Kelly and Jaden Daniels a lot of the credit, and a bunch of true freshmen that really made big plays when it mattered the most.
LSU is big time historically, but this coach combined with this quarterback, this team has not pulled off a win like this. We know what Saban's done. So if you're sitting at home, you're just expecting Bama to make the play, Bama to close it out, but they didn't. So how did LSU get it done?
What's funny, Mark, is Alabama did make the plays, right? Bryce Young made arguably the best play of his career to escape the pass rush for LSU that is just dominated that entire game, really. And Bryce Young really willed that team to an almost victory, right? He had to overcome some questionable 2-point conversion decisions from his coach. He had to overcome some questionable defensive plays from the opposite side of the football. His wide receivers just, quite frankly, weren't getting open, and Bryce Young did Bryce Young things. And, he kept making plays. He made plays in overtime as well. But this is what was really interesting was Brian Kelly's decision to go for 2 in the win, right? And a lot of teams don't do that. They want to extend the game and kick the extra point and keep it going. And ironically, I think of some of the big time decisions that coaches have made after the first overtime, whether to go for 2 in the win or kick the extra point and continue on. And I think about a few things, Mark. I know you're a college football, historian. Today is the anniversary of the 4th and 25 play, the Hunter Henry heave, right, versus Ole Miss. And what a lot of people forget is after that, Arkansas still had to go and score. And after that, Brett Bielema decided to go for 2 in the win, and they got it. And you go to last year, how about a guy who just got fired, Brian Harsin? He decided to not go for 2 in the win. And they obviously kicked the extra point, they extended, and they eventually lost. I'm a big believer in going for 2 in the win when you have the opportunity to do so as quickly as possible, because overtime's a random in and of itself. If I have the opportunity to go out and make the game-winning play and keep the Heisman Trophy winner on the sideline, that decision by Brian Kelly was so genius, Mark, because it didn't allow Bryce Young to come back into the game and potentially win the game. So it's always very interesting, that thought process, and Brian Kelly making the decision to go for 2 in the win and call the game-winning play for a 3-star true freshman tight end who had just made, the other big touchdown catch, was truly freaking incredible. But now, Mark, we look at the whole shebang. Yeah, you got the SEC West, you got a lot of interesting dynamics at play in what, to me, Mark, has been, and I'm not just saying this because my team is in it, but I think you can objectively say this, since the college football playoff has been in place, this is by far the most fascinating SEC West battle ever, because Alabama's now out of it, and now it's going to come down to LSU and potentially Ole Miss.
It's a calculated risk to go for 2 there. So it's a risk. Obviously, your kicker makes, I'm saying a kicker, not necessarily the LSU kicker, makes, 98, 90%, 99% of those PATs to extend the game versus, I think from the 2-point or from the 2-yard line, the 2-point conversion is something in the less than 50% category. But if you believe in the momentum, the juice, it's the moment, you believe in your quarterback to make the right decision. If there's a decision to be made, that was obviously a called play. Bam, that's your guy, Taylor at the pylon. then you believe in your play, you believe in the execution of the guys involved, and that's the decision to make. You would wonder, though, had that play not gone the PAT against Florida State in the opener, against LSU in the opener, that Brian Kelly's making that call. Who knows? But it was the right one to make. Yeah.
You never know. And it's interesting because, Nick obviously made two point conversion decisions. The first one made sense. Go kick the extra, go for 2 to go up by 3 late. The second one I thought was, if you want to talk about history, the Nick Saban has obviously made the right call 90% of the time. The second 2-point conversion try, if there is any Alabama fans looking at this, what was really bad. And the thing is like, yes, your chart said go for it. And Mark, me, I'm a big analytics guy. I'm a big aggression guy. I'm a big, go for it kind of guy. But Alabama had been really struggling in the red zone. So for me, if it's 50-50 on my chart, whether to go for 2 or not, kick the extra point, because your team had been really struggling offensively in that condensed red zone area. And honestly, Mark, that's probably the most fascinating thing about Brian Kelly up to this point is, you bring up the Florida State game. And if you are an LSU fan, you might have thought of this already, but as someone that looks at this every day, and this has kind of, become, my career, if you will, the most fascinating thing is just how drastically different the team is from the Florida State game. And it's not necessarily, Mark, well, the team has gotten better. Everyone can see that the team has gotten better. It's that the people who played in the Florida State game are not the same people who are playing now at over half of the positions, right? The right tackle is different. Your best linebacker is different. Your defensive line is different. The very first series of the game, arguably your best defensive player is out for the year. The team is so different. And the sign of a good coach, Mark, is when you say, look, what we have right now sucks. What we have right now isn't good enough. What we have right now is not the roster that is good enough to win us an SEC West or have us competitive versus Alabama. So a lot of the personnel decisions that Brian Kelly has made have been good, but they're also bold, right? Like one of the players that he's benched and is buried on the depth chart was a guy that was voted a team captain by the team before the season even began. So doing those kinds of things are easy in the minds of a lot of us, but they're not as easy because you get to know these players and you see how hard they work to get that starting position. And the fact that they've made those decisions is really impressive.